Facebook party. Excellence in Education. This is Marta Perez, and our mission is to expose and inspire excellence in education. Before I introduce our very important guest, please note here at Community Newspaper, we use all the safety precautions. We wear masks when we walk in. We use hand sanitizer, temperature checks, and use all this great plexiglass between speakers. So, also, please follow us on Facebook and send questions via our chat room. Now, please allow me to introduce a shero in our community, especially today, Commissioner Raquel Regalado. She's not only beautiful, she is deeply committed to the people of Miami-Dade and issues to improve their lives. She is an accomplished attorney, a mother of two, a former school board member, a radio host, and now commissioner in Miami-Dade County. Our community is so lucky to have such a talented, brilliant, and committed public servant. Welcome, Commissioner Raquel Regalado.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm your commissioner.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Yes,
your
yes,
commissioner.
yes.
So thank you. But thank you so much. And I miss you, Martha. I
Thank
miss
you.
you. So we spent 6 years together on the school board.
Yes, yes.
And I'm so happy that you're doing the show. This is wonderful. It's a great opportunity to talk about ed and to talk about all the issues that impact our community. I am the first school board member on the county commission.
I thought so.
First former school board member on the county commission. So we are actually working on a lot of items to help the district and to really create, that continuity between what's happening at our school district and what's happening at the county. The county has amazing resources, and we're actually working on a few projects to really link those two resources, especially now, right? So I think one of the things that, people should consider during this pandemic is that now more than ever, we're cognizant of our public spaces, our parks, our libraries, the importance of connectivity, of neighborhoods. And we've really been talking a lot about that at the county commission and really trying to help people and navigate forward.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I had a guest who said there is capital in where we live, because of course there's capital, we think of money, but there's also capital.
There's intellectual capital.
And also in living in a place that has nice bookstores and has nice parks, and that you enjoy life in those places. So I'm so glad that you're working on those things, because I know, because we were colleagues together on the school board, how one of the things that I always have said to people who have mentioned you is just how creative you are, because you would come for issues and you would bring a lot of creativity. And I think it has to do with the way your mind works. And I know that you're a patent attorney because you like gadgets and you like to think outside the box. And I think that is such an attractive and useful part of your personality. So I want to structure this, and I wish we had 2 hours, but I want three things that three parts of this interview. I'd like to talk about your latest autism, some of the things that you've been doing that I know is very important to you, and your mask is about autism. Then I would like, this is excellence in education, and we need to educate so many people about what's happening with the COVID-19 shots and the seniors and all of that. And people have a lot of questions about that. And I know that you can talk about as much as you can talk about to us. And thirdly, I do also want to talk about your background, because I want to talk about your very interesting parents with an S, and some of the things and how you grew up the way you did, and some of the lessons that you learned, because you had two very dynamic and interesting parents as well. So let's start with your wonderful initiative that you passed this morning.
Yes,
right?
yes, this
Congratulations.
morning. So, yes, thank you. I'm very excited. And I want to thank all the county commissioners who co-sponsored and co-prime sponsored this. So it was almost it was a unanimous vote, but also a lot of commissioners decided to join this initiative. So one of the things that we talked about at the school district was the importance of providing families and caregivers with tools. One of the things that we've seen over the years is that autistic children and neurodivergent children and adults don't have access to public spaces. They just don't go to them. They don't go to libraries. They don't use transit. They don't go to the airport. They don't go to the port. They're scared of what will happen in these public spaces because they don't know really how to navigate it. So what this board item does is we pair up with NSU Card, and we're creating training videos for everyone in these departments. So every single person in the library system, every single person in transit, including STS drivers, everyone in the parks department, and then there's a few other departments, fire and police, that we added on. Everyone is going to see these training videos that are specific to their department on how to deal with a neurodivergent person, what to expect when dealing with a neurodivergent person. So just the training alone is enormous, right? Because we're talking about educating thousands of people who will then educate thousands more. And then we're also going to create social stories, and we're going to have signage across all these departments that's the same.
And Raquel, why is this important? Tell us what the people who have had autism and that community. First of all, is it growing, and how do we help them, and how creative can they also be,
Right.
and how much value can they add if we
Include them, right.
concentrate on programs like these?
Right. So the number of what is the neurodivergent is growing every day, and it's important for people to understand that even though over the last 20 years we've been talking about children, autism is for life. And we have autistic teens, we have autistic adults, we have autistic elderly, and the same thing with neurodivergence across the spectrum. We have people that live well into their 80s and 90s. So this isn't something that is just a little kid problem. It's just that we're dealing with the diagnosis and then some of the treatment. But what we want is for them to be included in our society, to feel welcomed. And that's why, for example, the social stories, like we're going to use transportation as an example. Allowing and fostering people that are neurodivergent to use public transit is huge. For them, it is life-changing because a lot of them rely on their parents to move them around. Mm-hmm. They don't have the ability to drive, and their parents and caregivers are scared to put them on public transit because it can be such a confusing place, right? So the idea is we're going to provide social stories so that you can talk to the neurodivergent person. They know what to expect. The social story is going to have signage. The signage is going to be the same at a park, at an airport, at a transit station, so that they know what is a quiet space, what is not a quiet space, where you can be, where you cannot be. And that way it provides predictability, and we can start moving towards independence. And the social stories allow us to then take field trips and help our kids so that they understand that they can use these modalities and provide them with independence. I always tell people, Marta, and you heard me say this several times at the school board, the hardest part of the autism diagnosis is not the diagnosis. The hardest part is when you realize that your children will live in a world without you and that you have to provide them with access to that world. Mm-hmm. Neurodivergent people add so much, and we need to stop thinking of them as a problem and really include them and consider what they bring to the table and how they can change the dynamic. So I'm very excited about this program. It had a lot of support today. Michael Alessandri is wonderful, as you know, and I think this is really going to be a national model in terms of the next step, right? So the next step, especially for adults, really allowing autistic adults and neurodivergent adults to feel welcomed in public spaces.
Wonderful, and thank you. Right off, you hit the ground running, and for representing us so well, Raquel. Thank you. Now, as I said,
vaccines. That's all anybody wants to talk about.
Vaccines. And, I have so many friends that are 65, and it has been craziness. Get on the phone, get on,
Well, to
do
your
this, do
point.
that,
So yeah.
whatever. It's
So the
madness.
message, so the first thing is the message doesn't match up with the audience, right?
Mhm.
So that's our first problem.
That's
So
exactly.
the messaging is occurring online on social media, and most people 65 and older do not have access to that. So what are we seeing? People that are relying on their children, on their grandchildren. It's creating
Or no one
anxiety,
at
or no
all.
one at all, or no one at all. Now, finally, we have a few phone numbers. So, for example, the Hard Rock Stadium finally has a phone number. Before it was online or nothing. Now it
But
has
the
a phone number.
problem here's the problem with the phones. The phone, they ask you, what is your email?
Yes,
And
because they
your
want to send
email,
you a
well, not only
confirmation.
not only you not have an email, but you may have an email, but when you give it over the phone,
It's not.
they don't understand. That's oftentimes,
So I've
especially
submitted,
consonants are
right.
confused.
So I've submitted a board item. I'm hoping that it'll be heard now in February. It takes a while to get things
What
drafted
day in
and through.
February?
I'm hoping that it's our first meeting in February, which will be, I think, the second
The
is our
second.
first meeting.
Okay.
So fingers crossed that I get on that agenda. But the idea is to create a comprehensive list. So, and we wouldn't be the first county that's doing this. Manatee was actually the first county that did this. The idea is that anyone that's interested would go on the county website and register, and then we would use Everbright or other platforms. I say Everbright because we already have Everbright, and that's the mechanism that would send you a text or an email or a text and an email when we have vaccine available. So this means that people only have to register once as opposed to keep telling them to go back to the site, go back to the site, and go back to the site. So the state of Florida is already working on a statewide list. They've told me that they're going to have that ready in less than 2 weeks. And there's already a number that you can text at the state level. So if you text COVID-19 to the number 888-777, you will be on this
888-777.
777. If you
COVID-19.
COVID-19, you text COVID-19 to that number,
Okay.
you will be put on the state text list.
888-777.
Right. You'll be put on the state text list to receive information when there are vaccines in your area. So everybody's kind of, Broward just started a countywide, registration
Initiative.
system. That's the easiest thing to do. So I'm bringing it to the board. I hope it has support. I mean, I think we need to move faster. And we need to provide people with something that works.
Some of the people that are most anxious are, for example, people that have gotten their first shot at the zoo or at
they're getting their
Park.
second one. They're getting their second one no matter what.
Where are they getting them?
Well, they should have received a card. They have a CDC card,
right,
that has a date on there.
Yes.
Right. And it should be the same site.
But so if it's closed, if they're closing the zoo and they're closing
it's only
tropical.
Right. It's only closed because we don't have vaccines. So
right.
the other problem that we're having is we open these sites, without really
and they're not
knowing.
Giving hours. In those two places, they don't give hours to people. So yes, that you have to have it on such and such a date. But if the site is closed and you don't have a time, how do you know what to do?
Well, what the county has told us is that they're going to reach out to those people 3 to 4 days before that date. Now, the question is, how are they going to reach out to you? What information do they have? But that's a little bit easier to navigate. I mean, in that case, you can email us, you can call us at the office. If you already got the first shot, it's just a logistics issue about the second shot. Where we're getting the majority of the calls is for the first shot, right? I mean, because just to put it in perspective, just so that because we get lost in these numbers. Miami-Dade County has over 465,000 people that are 65 and older. So when you hear
half a million people.
That's almost 500,000 people, right? So when you hear the number, the county has administered, countywide, we've administered 100,000 vaccines. That's great. But we have close to 500,000 people that are 65 and over. So you have to put that in perspective. We're having weekly COVID meetings. And if you follow us, we can share the link.
Who is we?
The county commission. It's a Zoom meeting and folks can watch. And we actually go through, we had our first one last week. And our first one, I requested information on the zip codes, information on the cost of the vaccination site.
So the county is having COVID meetings
on the vaccine. So we have a Zoom meeting once a week
once a week.
that is hosted by the chair, and the mayor participates. And then we have all the commissioners that want to be on. We also have the firefighters, and we have Frank Rawlinson, who's in
Can the
charge.
public also
The public can write. Yes,
comment?
yes.
Can they comment or no?
I don't know if they can comment.
Or
I
ask
know they
questions?
can watch. I think you can put questions like on the side.
Yeah,
I think
like
right
the
now,
chat
like
questions.
a chat.
Okay.
But that is important because that's where you're going to get the latest, greatest as
Okay.
to where we are, what's happening, what we're considering,
Great.
and we're going to be talking about these issues. So that's
I
once
know.
a week. It happens either Thursday or Friday.
Thursday or
Yeah,
Friday.
either Thursday or Friday.
Okay,
is what
we'll
it's
call.
looking at.
People could call your office to find out
Yes,
what
and we
day
can
it
send
is.
you. Yeah, we can send you the information.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
sunshine meeting, so anybody can watch it over
Okay.
Zoom.
Good.
And we're doing it over Zoom because we had our regular meeting yesterday and then today, but we have so many items that we don't have enough time to talk about COVID and the vaccines. So we're just doing it over Zoom since it's just like a sunshine meeting.
Okay.
And we're just getting updates on
That's
where
a
we
great
are.
idea.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you the level of frustration, and you know how you're on strings with other people, and this place just opened. Go and just refresh. I don't know if you've heard the stories. You have, I mean, refresh. I got in, hurry up, and they closed this other site. Goodness,
it's a disaster, which is why a comprehensive list, would be the best thing. You register once, they send you the information, you just follow up. I mean, we're creating more anxiety with this. And look, it's been a balancing act. Some people say, don't create a list because you don't want to create an expectation. I disagree with that. I think we should create a list because that way people have one place to go. And that way we can disseminate information in a way that they choose. So that's why I mentioned Everbright and all these different platforms because, most people who are older, they have issues with the computer. But if you text them and if you text them the link or if you text them the number, that's a very different thing. As opposed to tell them, follow us on social media.
Oh, please.
That's a joke. I mean,
yes.
I love social media as much as the next person, but how are you going to tell an 80-year-old person to follow you on social media because you're going to be posting?
Well, I know it's easy to be critical, and I know everyone is working, and I'm one of those people that believes everyone in government, regardless of who you are and what, everyone is trying to get and do the right thing, particularly with this COVID. But like I've heard that in Israel, they started with ages and they said, okay, 90 and above. And until all of those people were not vaccinated, then they went to 80 and above and so forth. And maybe something like that, because as I say, oh my goodness, what chaos.
Well, we don't even know what we know. So one of the reasons that I think a list would be important is because we have the numbers of how many people qualify, but we don't know how many of those people want the vaccine.
That.
So, for example, I represent a special needs community that is scared of vaccines. And you and I have dealt with that on the school board. How many parents don't want to give children vaccines?
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
I mean, every year we have this controversial bill in Tallahassee. Lauren Book brings it, and we try to make vaccines mandatory, and we get tremendous pushback.
Yes.
So, if we had a list, we would know how many people are interested, and then we can start working on this other group of people who, for whatever reason, are not interested in the vaccine, and we can tackle that. Right now, we have a scarcity issue, right? We don't have enough vaccines. So we can't change that. We can only ask for more, but while we wait for more, we should get organized and start figuring out who's on first.
What is the glitch, as much as you know? Why are we not getting the vaccines? Because it's my understanding the vaccines are there, but it's a logistics.
I mean,
do you think that?
Well, right now the state requires us to use it within 7 days. So there's a pace, that we try to keep up with. When people say the vaccines are there, we're talking about that second dose, right? And that second dose is important. We can't use that second dose on someone else. That goes to the person who got the first dose. So that's the other issue. We were promised a certain amount of vaccines, and what they tell us at the federal level is there was a production issue. My understanding is that President Biden is supposed to sign, I think, 10 executive orders today, 10 today, just about vaccines in terms of like the production and all things COVID related to see if we can accelerate the production. But while we wait for the federal government to figure out the production issue, and by the way, In next week and the week after, we're expected to have two more vaccine hearings, right? So there's two other vaccines. There's the Johnson and Johnson and there's the Oxford who go to the CDC. And those require less refrigeration.
And
one is one
one
shot, so this is like a moving target, right? So while we're waiting for the federal government to figure out the amounts, let's get organized. Because here's the mistake that I think that we're making at the county level is that we're treating this like the testing. This is not the testing. For the testing, we had to convince people to go get tested. I don't know about you, but everyone that I know wants the vaccine. So like, we don't need to open a million places unless we have a million vaccines, and it's about deployment. We need to get organized and figure out where people are, who wants it, what's the quickest way, how do we get them there? Even basic information, like you're interested in the vaccine, what time can you go, where would work for you? This is all information that we could be gathering now so that when we get the vaccines, we're ready to go, as opposed to this constant like back and forth where we're trying to figure it out. I mean, I think we should use the time wisely.
Well, let me tell you, we've had quite a few comments on our chat. Someone, and I guess it's someone who knows, says everyone will be contacted for their second appointment.
Yes.
And then we have, that's from our mayor, our wonderful mayor.
See, everyone that got the first one will get the second one. Yes.
And then Barbara Pond says, I think you've answered this. When will more vaccines be available for those that have not received it? And I think you just commented on that. And then our mayor again says, greetings to two wonderful ladies. It's a joy to see you both. Thank you. We lack adequate vaccines for the demand and fighting to get more. Hopefully President Biden will be able to ramp up production.
It's a production.
And then she writes, check www.miamidade.gov/vaccine. I will be stepping out to take another. Okay, thanks.
Hi, Daniela.
Yes, thank you so much for that information and the good work that you're doing and trying to keep us as safe and as efficient as possible. Thank you. Mayor Levine Cava. Now, because this is a show that is going so fast, I have known you before you were so famous because of your wonderful parents.
Yes.
And everyone knows your dad because, of course, he was the fabulous Mayor Tomas Regalado for the city of Beloved, I should say, the beloved mayor of the city of Miami. And he is wonderful. And there is a lot that he did before he was mayor that is very interesting. But so is your mom.
Yes. Thank you.
The beautiful Raquel Regalado, who you were named for.
Yes.
And not only was she beautiful like you don't look like her.
No.
You're both beauties in your own way.
I look like my dad.
In your own style. But not only was she beautiful, she was quite a fighter. And she was very well educated and a brilliant journalist. Tell us about growing up with your mom, Raquel Regalado.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you. So my mother was fabulous. I was actually I was the child of a working mother, which in the 70s was not like a normal thing. My mother worked in radio. She actually went to Biscayne College, which is now St. Thomas. So she was a college grad. She came to this country as a teenager. And she loved journalism. She was actually obsessed with the state legislature. And I tell people, they always ask me about my knowledge of, Tallahassee and how the state legislature works. Mm-hmm. My mother was the first journalist in Spanish language to cover the state legislature. And she actually took me to Tallahassee every year for the legislative session from when I was 6 years old until I was 14 years old. And that's because at 14, I didn't want to go anymore with her. She would have taken me, but I was kind of done with the whole thing. And that was before term limits, when things were very different. I was raised in a radio station. My father, my mother, and my grandfather worked in the same radio station. And my father was the first Hispanic appointed to the White House press corps. So my dad actually covered the White House from Nixon to Clinton. And that was amazing because those are the things that we talked about in our dining room table. My mother loved state and local politics. And I was telling someone the other day that she actually took me to the press conference where they rolled out the half penny. I was the only child there. There's actually a photo of like all the adults, and there's a little girl. I am that little girl standing there at the half penny press conference, right? So my mother loved local politics and really believed that it was her mission to educate people in Spanish language radio about how government works and about government accountability. She interviewed Dante Facel. She interviewed Lawton Childs. I mean, just amazing, amazing people at a time where Spanish language radio didn't talk about local government. So when my mother passed away suddenly, my father said, do you want to do her radio show? And I miss my mother. Was such an amazing force. I mean, you knew her. I
I
mean, she
know.
was such.
She was
People think
fearless.
that people think that
Fearless.
people think that
Oh
I'm
my.
like aggressive. Like I am nothing compared to my mother. My mother was
She was a dainty, beautiful, one of those
petite, like a petite,
peach skin.
and then she opened her mouth.
and
Yeah.
then she'd say things and I go, oh wow.
Yeah, she was a handful, my mother, and but she was wonderful and such a fierce advocate, such a fierce advocate,
such an advocate for ethics
yes,
and for the
yes.
truth and knowledge and
Yeah.
the American
Relentless,
way. I mean,
relentless,
superwoman,
relentless,
right? Yes.
relentless,
So
relentless.
I really enjoyed knowing her,
Yeah.
and she is missed because, and like you say, she died prematurely, and was always such a good thing for our community, as you have,
Thank you.
as you
Thank you.
are.
And I'll say one thing, because I mean, for all the women that are watching, my mother taught me so much. And I remember when I was, I must have been like 6 years old, and my mother was the only working mother, like in school. Like everybody else was like a stay-at-home mom. And I remember there was like an event at school. I went to a parochial school. I went to St. Peter and Paul, and she didn't go. So I went home all like ready to give her, peace of my mind about how she didn't go to my school event. And I was like, Mom, you missed the event. She was like, you need to sit down. I love you very much and you're my priority, but I'm not just your mother. I am a wife. I am a sister. I am a daughter. I am an employer. I am an employee. And she talked about all these responsibilities that she had. And she was like, I'm here for you. But if you need something, you need to vocalize that. And you need to tell me that it's important, because I don't read minds. I have a lot of things to do. And you are not my identity. I am your parent, but it is not my only job. And I remember sitting there like, okay. But, in terms of, being a career woman and managing children and managing responsibilities and managing expectations, my mother taught me so much. And she taught me so much about articulating what you want and being clear about your boundaries, and really telling people up front, this is what it's about. And she did me a tremendous service. And I think young girls today deal with all these issues because of social media about likability and about wanting to make people happy and wanting to be liked and not wanting to be seen as aggressive or as too assertive, and I'll tell you this, I was always a bossy kid. That should surprise no one, but my mother always used to say, you need to make a difference. And if that difference upsets some people, so be it, right?
Yes.
But, the last thing I want you to be, she always said, you could be anything you want, Raquel. Anything you want to do with your life, I'll support you. Just don't be mediocre, because that's unacceptable. And she's like, don't be mediocre at anything. Like, as long as you're, as long as you try your best. And she really did allow us, because there's three of us, to really live our lives. And she allowed us to take responsibility for the things, and she never came in and like solved our problems. She wasn't like a helicopter parent. When you would come to her with something, she'd be like, and what are you going to do about that? And it was difficult, and I see it now as a parent. That's a difficult thing to do, to step back and say, okay, like you have to deal with this problem. But she raised three people that were very well adjusted and that have done great work. And I'll say this last thing. My father's a Peter Pan. And there is, El Museo Cubano has a tremendous, new exhibit, which now they delayed the opening because of COVID, but they're going to be opening in a few months. And this is a different type of Peter Pan exhibit because it not only tells their story, but it also follows their children.
Oh,
And I'm in it because it
oh,
has the children
great.
and the grandchildren
Oh,
of the
wonderful.
Peter Pans,
Oh,
and how being the child of a Peter Pan impacted you,
good,
right? So what
good.
it is it that you learned from this Peter Pan experience. So I think that our stories are, immigrant stories, and that our parents faced a lot of challenges. But I think that, the legacy of my family was really this love of government. And that came from my mother. My father eventually jumped on board,
Uh-huh.
but the one who really truly believed in
Uh-huh.
government and in media as a way to educate was my mother. So thank you for bringing her up.
Well,
We
I
miss her a
must
lot.
say that having known her and having been her friend, I know she would be so proud because you're carrying on her legacy so well. I'm sure you're um, going way beyond her expectations. And our time is up, and I know you have to go, but I have pages of questions that we
We'll
didn't
do it
get
again.
to.
We'll do it again. We'll
But
do it
yes,
again. We'll do it
please,
again.
please, and keep us in your thoughts, and particularly the whole COVID thing that is so concerning.
Happy to report back. Happy to
And
report back.
let us
Yeah.
know anytime. So thank you very much for coming. And this program is called Excellence in Education, and that is what you have done, an
And
excellent
you.
program of educating not the community. Thank you so
And
much.
thank you for your service to the Miami-Dade County School Board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, folks.